Vulnerability is often misunderstood. We associate it with weakness, with fragility, with something to be hidden or avoided at all costs. We are taught from an early age to toughen up, to guard our emotions, to present an image of strength even when we are breaking inside. But the truth is, real strength has never been about how well we hide. It has always been about how willing we are to show up exactly as we are. No masks, no armor. To rebuild yourself, you must be willing to embrace vulnerability as your greatest strength. That means letting yourself be seen in all your imperfection. It means acknowledging the parts of you that you'd rather keep hidden, the fears, the self-doubt, the wounds that haven't fully healed. It means recognizing that the courage to stand in your truth, even when it's uncomfortable, is the foundation of true transformation. Most of us resist vulnerability because we fear rejection. We fear that if people see us in our rawest form, they won't accept us. So we put on a performance. We edit ourselves. We pretend that we have it all together, that we are in control, that we don't need help. But what we don't realize is that in doing so, we build walls that keep us isolated. We cut ourselves off from the very connection that we crave. Rebuilding yourself requires tearing down those walls. It requires allowing people to see you not just when you are strong, but when you are struggling. Because real connection doesn't happen in the moments when we have everything figured out. It happens in the spaces where we admit that we don't. Being vulnerable means being honest with yourself first. It means recognizing the stories you've been telling yourself, the ones that say you are not enough, that you have to prove your worth, that you are only valuable if you are perfect. Vulnerability asks you to challenge those beliefs, to sit with the discomfort of uncertainty, to stop running from the parts of yourself that feel too messy to share. You cannot rebuild something if you refuse to look at its foundation. You cannot create a stronger version of yourself if you are unwilling to examine the pieces that need to be rebuilt. It's terrifying to step into that space, to say, here I am, flaws and all. But what if you knew that vulnerability wasn't a weakness, but a bridge? What if you understood that every time you let yourself be seen, you are opening the door to deeper connection, greater growth, and a more meaningful life? Strength is not found in perfection. Strength is found in the willingness to keep showing up, even when you are afraid. When we avoid vulnerability, we avoid life itself. We stay in relationships that feel safe but unfulfilling because leaving means stepping into the unknown. We refuse to chase our dreams because failure would mean exposing the part of us that wonders if we're really good enough. We numb ourselves through work, through distractions, through anything that keeps us from feeling too deeply because facing what's inside feels like too much. But avoiding vulnerability doesn't make us stronger. It only keeps us stuck. True strength is standing in your truth even when it shakes. It's looking someone in the eye and saying, this is what I need, even when you're terrified of their response. It's admitting that you don't have all the answers, that you're still figuring it out, that you're learning as you go. Strength is choosing to love yourself even when you feel unworthy. It's showing up for the hard conversations. It's letting yourself be known, not just for the polished version of who you are, but for the real, unfiltered, vulnerable human beneath it all. Vulnerability is where resilience is born. It's where courage begins. It is not the thing that holds you back. It is the thing that will set you free. Perfectionism is a trap, a heavy weight disguised as ambition. It whispers that if we can just do things flawlessly, if we can avoid mistakes, if we can meet every expectation, then we will finally be enough. It convinces us that our worth is tied to our achievements, that we must prove ourselves over and over again. And yet perfection is an illusion, an unattainable standard that keeps moving further away no matter how hard we chase it. Letting go of perfectionism is not about lowering your standards. It's about freeing yourself from the belief that you are only as good as your last success. It's about recognizing that growth, joy, and connection are found in the messiness of being human, not in the pursuit of flawlessness. Perfectionism doesn't just demand excellence, it demands invulnerability. It tells you that mistakes are unacceptable, that failure is shameful, that you must always be in control. And so you edit yourself. You hide your struggles. You avoid risks that might expose you as anything less than perfect. But what perfectionism really does is keep you small. It keeps you from starting, because if something can't be done perfectly, then why do it at all? It keeps you from speaking up, because if your words aren't perfectly crafted, then maybe they aren't worth saying. It keeps you from sharing your ideas, your work, your heart, because the possibility of falling short feels unbearable. And so you stay in the comfort of what is safe, never daring to step fully into the world as you are. Perfectionism convinces you that your worth is conditional, that love, success, and belonging must be earned through relentless effort. That if you just work a little harder, push a little more, get it exactly right, then you will finally be good enough. But perfection is not the price of worthiness. You do not have to be flawless to be valued. You do not have to be without mistakes to be loved. The truth is, your imperfections are what make you real. They are what make you relatable, human, alive. The fear at the core of perfectionism is shame. The fear that if we fall short, we will be unworthy. The fear that if we fail, we will not be enough. But failure is not a reflection of who you are. It is a part of the process. Every success story is built on mistakes, missteps, and lessons learned. Every person who has ever achieved something meaningful has done so not because they avoided failure, but because they were willing to embrace it. Releasing perfectionism means embracing progress over performance. It means allowing yourself to be a work in progress without apology. It means choosing courage over certainty, knowing that real growth happens when you are willing to be imperfect. It means rewriting the narrative that says you must always be more, always be better, always be in control. It means stepping into the world as you are, rather than waiting until you feel ready, polished, or perfect. Letting go of perfectionism is not easy. It requires unlearning years of conditioning, of believing that your value is something you have to earn. It requires being gentle with yourself when you fall short. It requires recognizing that you are not here to be perfect. You are here to be real, to be messy, to be human. And in that humanity, in that willingness to show up as you are, lies the very thing perfectionism has always tried to steal from you: freedom. The stories we tell ourselves shape the way we move through the world. They define what we believe we are capable of, what we deserve, and how we see our own worth. Some of these stories are empowering, lifting us up and pushing us forward, but many of them are limiting, built from old wounds, past failures, and the opinions of people who never truly saw us. These stories become our reality, not because they are true, but because we have repeated them for so long that they feel like truth. There comes a point when you must ask yourself, who wrote the story I am living? Whose voice shaped the way I see myself? Did I choose this narrative, or was it handed to me? Maybe you grew up believing that you had to earn love by being perfect. Maybe you internalized the idea that your worth was measured by your productivity, your appearance, or your ability to please others. Maybe you've been carrying a story that says you are not enough, that you are too much, that you will always be stuck. These stories may have been given to you by parents, teachers, past relationships, or society itself, but they do not have to be the stories you continue to live by. Rewriting your story does not mean denying your past. It does not mean pretending that the pain, the struggle, or the setbacks never happened. It means deciding that those experiences do not get to define you. It means taking ownership of your narrative and choosing to tell a new version, one where you are not a victim of circumstance, but the author of your own life. It means recognizing that the past may have shaped you, but it does not have to determine where you go from here. To rewrite your story, you must first become aware of the beliefs that have been guiding you. Pay attention to the way you speak to yourself, to the words that follow, I am. Are they filled with doubt, with limitation, with shame? Do they reflect an outdated version of you, one that no longer fits who you are becoming? The moment you realize that these beliefs are not facts, that they are simply stories you have told yourself over and over again, is the moment you take your power back. Changing your narrative requires stepping into discomfort. It means challenging the version of yourself that feels familiar, even if it is painful. It means recognizing that growth will always ask you to let go of something, whether it's an old identity, a limiting belief, or a fear that has kept you safe but small. It means choosing to believe in possibilities instead of limitations, in progress instead of perfection. There will be resistance. The old stories will try to pull you back. They will tell you that change is too hard, that you are not capable, that it is safer to stay the same. But every time you choose a new thought, every time you replace self-doubt with self-compassion, every time you take one small step toward the person you are becoming, you are rewriting the script. You are proving to yourself that you are not bound by the past. The beauty of rewriting your story is that it is never too late. You do not have to wait for permission. You do not need a perfect plan. You simply need to decide that the version of you that has been playing small, that has been living by someone else's script, is not the version you are meant to be. You get to choose a new path, a new belief, a new way of seeing yourself. You get to decide right now that the next chapter of your life will be written by you. There is a difference between protecting yourself and shutting yourself off. For so many of us, the lines have blurred. We have been hurt, disappointed, or betrayed, and in response, we build walls. Thick, impenetrable, isolating. Walls keep people out, keep us safe, keep us from feeling too much. But they also keep us from connection, from trust, from growth. The alternative is boundaries, a concept that feels foreign to those of us who have spent our lives prioritizing others over ourselves. But boundaries are not walls. They do not isolate us, they free us. They do not keep love out, they make space for real, honest, sustainable relationships. Walls are built out of fear of being let down again, of being taken advantage of being seen too closely. They are a response to past pain, to experiences that taught us that being open led to being wounded. So we harden, we stop asking for help, we stop sharing our struggles. We tell ourselves that we don't need anyone, that we are fine on our own. And while independence is valuable, isolation is not the answer. Cutting ourselves off from vulnerability does not prevent pain. It only ensures that when pain comes, we will face it alone. Boundaries, on the other hand, are built from self-respect. They do not shut people out. They show people how to stay. They are a way of saying, I value myself enough to be clear about what I will and will not accept. They are not about control or manipulation. They are not about punishing others for how they've treated us in the past. They are about recognizing that we are responsible for how we allow people to engage with us. So many of us were raised to believe that setting boundaries is selfish, that saying no is rude, that our value comes from our ability to accommodate and please others. We have been taught that love means self-sacrifice, that friendship means being endlessly available, that family means accepting whatever treatment is given without question. But love without boundaries is not love. It is obligation. It is resentment waiting to bloom. It is exhaustion disguised as devotion. When we constantly say yes to things that drain us, we lose ourselves in the process. And when we lose ourselves, we have nothing left to give. Building boundaries requires unlearning the guilt that comes with putting yourself first. It means recognizing that you are allowed to disappoint people, that you are not responsible for how others react to your needs. It means understanding that people who genuinely care about you will respect your limits, and those who don't were never truly invested in a healthy relationship to begin with. It means standing firm in your decisions, even when others push back, because they will push back. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries will be the most uncomfortable when you start setting them. Boundaries are not just about saying no. They are also about saying yes to the things that matter, to the people who honor your space, to the relationships that replenish rather than deplete. They are about making room for what aligns with your well-being rather than filling your life with obligations that leave you running on empty. They are about learning that you do not have to explain or justify every decision you make to protect your peace. It is not easy. At first, setting boundaries will feel uncomfortable, even wrong. You will feel guilty. You will worry that people will walk away, and some might. But those who remain, those who adjust, those who respect you, even when you stop overextending yourself, those are the ones worth keeping. Because relationships that require self-abandonment are not relationships worth maintaining. Boundaries are not rejection. They are an invitation for healthier, more authentic connections. They are the difference between keeping people at a distance and allowing them to be close in a way that is safe, sustainable, and real. Discomfort is the space between who you are and who you're becoming. It is the stretch, the uncertainty, the moment when everything in you wants to turn back, yet something deeper whispers that you must keep going. Most people spend their lives avoiding discomfort, mistaking it for danger, as if the presence of struggle means they are on the wrong path. But the truth is, discomfort is not a warning sign. It is proof that you are growing. From the moment we are born, we are wired to seek comfort. We crave the familiar, the predictable, the spaces where we feel safe and in control. And yet, everything meaningful, everything that shapes us, happens outside of that comfort zone. The first time we speak up, despite the fear of judgment. The first time we try something new, knowing we might fail. The first time we allow ourselves to be fully seen, even when vulnerability feels like a risk. These are the moments that define us, not because they are easy, but because they are not. Discomfort is the price of transformation. It is the necessary friction that occurs when we push beyond old patterns, outdated beliefs, and self-imposed limitations. It is the awkwardness of breaking free from roles we have played for too long, the uncertainty of stepping into something new before we feel fully ready. The mistake we make is assuming that discomfort means stop, that if something is difficult, it must not be for us, that if something feels unfamiliar, it must not be meant for us. But growth does not come wrapped in ease. It arrives through challenge, through doubt, through the willingness to endure the stretch between where we are and where we want to be. Leaning into discomfort means understanding that fear and progress are not opposites, they are partners. The things that scare us most are often the things that matter most. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough. These are not signs that we should retreat. They are signs that we are standing at the edge of something important. It is easy to stay where we have always been, to repeat the same routines, to tell ourselves that we will take the leap when we feel more confident. But confidence is not something that arrives before action. It is something built through action. The discomfort of growth is not just external, it is internal. It is the discomfort of confronting the stories we have told ourselves about who we are and what we are capable of. It is questioning the belief that we must be perfect to be worthy. It is facing the truth that we have played small because it felt safer than risking failure. It is sitting with our own insecurities without numbing them, without running from them, without distracting ourselves with the noise of busyness or avoidance. Avoiding discomfort does not protect us, it limits us. It keeps us stuck in jobs that drain us, relationships that no longer nourish us, versions of ourselves that no longer fit. It convinces us that change is too risky, that staying the same is the safer option. But staying the same is its own kind of pain, the pain of unrealized potential, of unspoken dreams, of a life half lived because we were too afraid to step into the unknown. Leading into discomfort is not about seeking pain for the sake of pain. It is about recognizing that the discomfort of growth is different from the discomfort of stagnation. It is about choosing the kind of discomfort that moves you forward rather than the kind that keeps you small. It is about trusting that you can handle the uncertainty, the awkwardness, the moments when you feel like you are failing. Because failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the process. The more you allow yourself to sit in discomfort, to push through instead of pull back, the more you realize that you are capable of far more than you once believed. There is a voice inside you that speaks the loudest when you fall short, when you make mistakes, when you feel like you are not enough. It is the voice of self-criticism, the one that tells you that you should have done better, that you are failing, that you are somehow behind. It is a voice so familiar that you may not even notice how often it plays in the background of your life. And yet, the way you speak to yourself in those moments matters more than anything else. We are taught to be kind to others, to offer understanding, to extend grace. When a friend is struggling, we remind them that they are human. When a loved one makes a mistake, we tell them it's okay, that one failure does not define them. But when it comes to ourselves, we hold a different standard. We speak in harsh tones. We replay every misstep. We convince ourselves that we are unworthy of the same kindness we so freely give to others. Self-compassion is the radical act of treating yourself with the same love and understanding that you would offer to someone else. It is not about ignoring your mistakes or making excuses. It is about recognizing that imperfection is part of being human. It is about learning to sit with yourself, even in the moments when you feel unworthy, and choosing kindness instead of self-punishment. It is about understanding that growth does not come from shame, but from the willingness to embrace yourself fully, flaws and all. The hardest part of self-compassion is unlearning the belief that we must be hard on ourselves in order to be better. We think that if we are kind to ourselves, we will become complacent, that without self-criticism, we will stop growing. But shame is not a motivator, it is a paralyzer. It keeps us stuck in cycles of self-doubt, afraid to take risks, afraid to try again after failure. Compassion, on the other hand, is what allows us to move forward. When we stop punishing ourselves for every misstep, we create space to actually learn from them. When we stop defining ourselves by our worst moments, we give ourselves permission to become something more. Practicing self-compassion means recognizing that struggle is not a personal failure. It means reminding yourself that pain, disappointment, and setbacks are part of every human experience. It means allowing yourself to rest when you're exhausted instead of pushing through just to prove your worth. It means forgiving yourself for the times you didn't know better, the times you let fear guide you, the times you were simply doing the best you could. It is not easy. The voice of self-criticism will not disappear overnight. It will show up when you least expect it, whispering the old narratives of unworthiness, of not being enough. But every time you choose to meet that voice with kindness instead of shame, you weaken its power. Every time you remind yourself that your worth is not measured by perfection, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Every time you choose to speak to yourself with the same love you would give to a friend, you begin to rewrite the way you see yourself. Self-compassion is not about becoming someone new. It is about learning to love who you already are. It is about giving yourself permission to exist fully and unapologetically without constantly trying to prove that you deserve to be here. It is about understanding that the relationship you have with yourself is the foundation for everything else in your life. And when you choose compassion over criticism, you do not just change the way you see yourself, you change the way you move through the world. Rebuilding yourself is not about becoming someone entirely new. It is about returning to yourself with greater awareness, deeper understanding, and a renewed sense of worth. It is about embracing vulnerability as a source of strength, letting go of perfectionism, and rewriting the stories that no longer serve you. It is about building boundaries that honor your well-being, leaning into discomfort as a path to growth, and practicing self-compassion even in your most imperfect moments. Transformation is not a single act, but a series of choices. The choice to show up, to keep going, to believe in yourself even when the path is uncertain. The work of rebuilding is not easy, but it is worth it. Because on the other side of fear, of doubt, of the discomfort that comes with change, is the freedom to live fully, boldly and is the truest version of yourself.